Thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. $1 million. $1 million in back pay. That's a huge number. And you talk about life-changing. That is something that would be life-changing, right? So there is a bill that has been reintroduced that would absolutely make that a reality for some veterans. And, in my opinion, could open the door for other veterans to also receive that type of back pay. And I'll explain how here in a minute. And I will also dive into the press release on this reintroduced bill. Now, like with any bill that's being introduced, and if you support it, we can't sit on our hands, right? We must support it verbally, right? I'm not saying you need to go down to that congressional member's office and, camp out on their doorstep. You can call, leave them a message. You could speak to one of their staffers, let them know that you support legislation X or Y or bill whatever. That's fine. You can also go on their website and hit the contact us portion, and you can fill in the blanks and hit send, right? Essentially an email to that representative, the staffers, whatever. They'll start tallying up how many people, believe me, they'll start tallying it up. Oh, we got 3 people that called in about this, or 7 or 10 this day, or whatever. The bottom line is that the more hands, the lighter the work, right? So this is no different. We as a veteran community, the veteran sphere, can tend to be a little bit quiet about things and just kind of take what we get. We need to learn to be a little louder, especially when somebody else has already brought up the issue, such as creating a bill or creating legislation around something. If we support it, we need to speak up and show that we support it. Don't rely on the veteran service organizations to carry it across the finish line. They are an important piece, don't get me wrong. They're very important, and their best place is at Capitol Hill. They are championing many pieces of legislation on the Hill. We, as the veteran sphere, need to do our part in the districts, as the constituents. Reach out and say, hey, I'm a constituent, I'm a veteran, I'm a surviving spouse, I'm a dependent, and I support whatever bill or legislation it is. So with that, let's jump into it here. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. If you're not a member, consider joining. It does help out the channel and helps me find you in the comments. All right, representatives, I did a video on this yesterday, by the way. Just kind of double tapping it to make sure we get the word out. Representative Carbajal and Bacon reintroduce bill to expand benefits for veteran survivors of sexual assault with support of the oldest veteran service organization in the U.S., the oldest war veterans service organization in the U.S. That is the Veterans of Foreign Wars. So, moving on, Congressman Carbajal and Congressman Bacon are reintroducing bipartisan legislation here on October 24th is when that was done. At least that's what this press article is. To expand benefits for veterans who experience sexual trauma during their service. The Veterans Restitution and Justice Act would change the effective date of a veteran's claim to allow veterans who experience sexual trauma during their service to receive retroactive disability benefits starting from the date after their discharge from service, rather than the claim file date or intent to file date. I'll add in there. So here's the example, right? Veteran was out for 22 years, right? They file a claim, it takes 12 months. They get back paid 12 months. Veteran gets out, 22 years goes by, they file an intent to file. 12 months goes by, they file their claim. 12 months goes by, it's decided they get 24 months of back pay. Well, if this legislation goes through, veterans out for 22 years, they file their claim, takes 12 months. If it's for MST, military sexual trauma, it would be backdated 23 years in this case, which in today's world, that's $4,000 a month if you're 100%, right? So if it's severe and you end up at 100%, well, that's $4,000 a month at $48,000 a year over 23 years would be over $1 million in today's figures. Now, the calculations would be different because it wasn't $4,000 a month 23 years ago. It was whatever, right? $2,500 a month or $2,700 a month or whatever it was, right? So you got to figure out the math for each year, but you could potentially get over $1 million in back pay. Now, I've seen things like this before, gigantic back pays from things like Niemer cases. For those that aren't familiar, there are certain cases in which Vietnam veterans would receive gigantic back pays through Niemer, and it was common to see hundreds of thousands of dollars in back pay. So let's jump back into this. The Veteran Restitution and Justice Act, that's the name of the act, and that's the one that you'd want to support. If you support this, reaching out to your congressional members. The Veterans Restitution and Justice Act was first introduced in 2022 and has also earned the endorsement from the Veterans of Foreign Wars. The bill would change the effective date of a veteran's claim to allow veterans who experience sexual trauma during their service to receive retroactive disability benefits starting from the date after their discharge from service rather than the claim date. Now, here's another piece of this pie. If we can get this bill to go through and take care of MST survivors, then the next logical step would be PTSD for other reasons, right? So PTSD veterans who may be in a situation where it takes a while to build up the ability to go in and relive all this stuff and have these conversations with your doctors and with your psychologist and with your counselor and with your C&P examiner and all of that, right? It's a lot of energy. So many years go by before you finally take that step to file the claim and get it done. So that would be the next logical move, in my opinion. So a couple quick quotes here from the representatives, because it's just nice to know kind of where their heads are at. And then I'm going to jump back into a little more of the meat and potatoes here. So my office and I recently had the chance to work with a veteran from the Central Coast who had finally mustered up the courage to report her own military sexual trauma more than 25 years after the incident, only to be told her benefits would only be considered back to the day she spoke up. Our veterans deserve better when it comes to this historically underreported injury, especially as we acknowledge the stigma around the issue. That's why I've worked across the aisle with Congressman Bacon, a fellow veteran in Congress, to craft legislation to deliver restitution for these survivors of sexual trauma and justice for the many veterans who we know faced these injuries while serving our nation. The next one is, one sexual assault is one too many. Sexual assault in the military leaves behind a wake of trauma, anxiety, and depression, said Representative Bacon. As wing commander at Ramstein, I established the best sexual assault prevention program in the Air Force because I recognize the importance of keeping our service members safe from this kind of violence. For those service members who do tragically experience sexual assault, we should ensure that they receive payment for treatments to help them recover. Changing the effective date from when a veteran receives payments is the right thing to do. Currently, most benefits provided by the Department of Veterans Affairs are calculated using the day the claim was filed, as we all know, right? And again, I'm going to insert or the intent to file date, right? Because you can file that intent to file and that preserves the effective date. Moving on. But with survivors of military sexual traumas, including unwanted sexual conduct or advances, there is a historical trend of stigma and underreporting, meaning veterans may wait years before filing a VA claim. Congressman Carbajal and his team worked with one such case, a female veteran from the Central Coast of California who was granted benefits related to PTSD caused by sexual trauma during her service, but filed a claim more than 25 years after the injury, diminishing the total benefit that she qualified to receive. This bill was also endorsed by the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and there's some more talking about that. And then it goes on here and it states that the VA estimates that 1 in 3 female veterans and 1 in 50 male veterans experience sexual trauma in some form during their service. So, very important. In certain cases, like exposure to Agent Orange or toxic chemicals, the VA has granted retroactive benefits, and that's again Niemer is what that falls under. And but no such retroactive retroactive type of benefits exist for claims related to sexual trauma, despite the enduring effects these injuries can have on a veteran. And then it goes on here, again, just kind of double tapping on the fact that it is the Veterans Restitution and Justice Act. And wanted to share that with you. If you have any questions, you can reach out to either one of those folks, either Congressman Carbajal or Congressman Bacon, to get more information. But if you support it, reach out to your district's congressional representatives, both on the House and the Senate side, right? Let them both know that you support this legislation. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.